It is Wednesday morning. Yesterday, disaster struck. I bought torque converter bolts for a LS 4L60. This would be any standard 4L60 torque converter bolts. And so I was actually screwing those in, and they were the wrong threads for this torque converter, which is odd. Torque converter is actually a standard thread. So I found this out the hard way because the bolt wouldn't go in all the way and it wasn't tightening down like what we needed. So I took it out. It probably messed up some of the threads on the torque converter. So I went up to the store, got the correct threads, bolts, and I got grade 8 to see if I could, power through the bad threads, so it kind of rethread it going in. And it didn't. Instead, I got it in there and I couldn't turn it in anymore, so I was like, okay, well let me go ahead and turn it back out. And when I turned it back out, it wasn't coming out, so I grabbed the impact to try to get it out, and it broke off the bolt. So our Wednesday is going to consist of removing the transmission, then removing the torque converter, then removing the bolt from the torque converter, and probably helicoiling it. I was able to drill out the bolt. Had to go to the hardware store to get some better drill bits because all of this is hardened stuff. So, but here's the plan. So I was able to drill that out completely. So, I mean, there's no threads in there, of course. But what I'm planning on doing is now we'll have this go through the flex plate, like normal. But I'm gonna put a nut on the back of this, and I'm gonna weld the nut to the back of this. I'm also gonna go through all of the other sides and do the same thing so that we don't affect the balance of anything, because this is actually, let's see, shouldn't have any issues doing that. I'll tighten this down on it, and then, but yes, so I'll weld a nut on the back of each side, and that should actually make it so that it's balanced with the nut on each side, giving it a little bit more thread room, and also solve our issue here. It has been a long day today, but we got it all done. So in summary, got the transmission out, pulled the torque converter out, drilled out the hole, welded new nuts to the back of the torque converter, put the torque converter back in, put the transmission back in, final install of the exhaust, starter, transmission lines. We should be ready to start this as soon as I figure out what the fuel issue is, because it's not getting fuel to the rail. So I'm going to pull the bed off, figure out what I did there. But, you know, it is what it is. So, I'm about to start cleaning up, and then I'll be able to go home on time today. The goal for today is I'm going to go ahead and take off the truck bed and figure out what I did wrong in the fuel system. And then we should be able to start the thing as soon as we've confirmed fuel to the rail. Got a whole bunch of the packages in. that I had ordered. The first one is, remember I was going over the intake and how we don't have enough room? Well, we got the intake that we need. This one is by Spectre. Clearance is close, but it actually doesn't touch, which is surprising and very nice, and it stays under the hood line. I love it. This is perfect. I also got the wiring that I'm gonna need. Got some low voltage 18 gauge wire that I'm gonna be using for the line lock, and we'll see if I have to use it for anything else. But something else that we got. So check this out. I got my vacuum hose kit. So we run all the vacuum lines and everything, and it has a little gutter. It's a gutter. I'll take my cutter back. That hose is way too long. You need to cut it. You really need to cut it. And then we have, this is something that's awesome right here. So what's happening is there's a leak on the steering box. There's a leak on the steering box, and I don't know exactly where it's coming from. I replaced the input shaft seal, and I replaced the 2 seals for, well, replaced them whenever I put in new O-rings for the are those things called? When I replaced the O-rings for the AN fittings on the top of the steering box. Well, guess what? It still leaks. It's only like a drop every few days, but it still leaks, and the truck needs to be perfect. Also, another news, we're probably not gonna make it to LS Fest, and I haven't bought the ticket to actually show the car at LS Fest yet because, well, I mean, I have to make sure we're actually gonna make it. So, I mean, right now, once we get the truck running, we're gonna be dealing with getting it tuned and making sure it's actually gonna be perfect. And I'd rather have the truck be perfect and run correctly than rush things to make it so that we can actually make it to LS Fest. LS Fest needs to be not top priority. Quality of the vehicle needs to be top priority. So there's that. But anyway, sorry about that side quest there. Going back to the steering box. So it has that little leak and I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Customer said, okay, well, let's just replace the whole steering box. He's like, send me a part number. So guess what? I found one from Detroit Speed that gives it it's 3 turns lock to lock. We're talking about race car. I'm talking about my Firebird does that. And there's a C5 Corvette that I'm doing right now that also is 3 turns lock to lock. So this thing should have super quick ratio steering, which is going to be badass with this level of power that he's going to be putting out. Plus, with you doing donuts and everything, you know, you want to have a quicker ratio so that it's less turns to actually correct. Especially, again, with that level of power. So, freaking steering box from Detroit Speed. I'll list the part number in the description. That's gonna be badass, and I'm hoping it actually fits in there without additional parts. So we're getting fuel to the rail. Let's see if it'll fire real quick. Real quick. It fired. The exhaust cutouts actually need a battery for the little remote. So, I have to go and get that battery, but in the meantime, I went ahead and applied power directly to the motors to make it so that it would close each one of the valves. And then, I'm about to put some transmission fluid in this so that we can actually start it up for more than, 5 seconds. Hi, I'm Sean, owner of Sleeper Cars Anonymous, LLC. If you want to have your car built on the show, send us an email at sean.butler@sleepercarsanonymous.com. Again, that is sean.butler@sleepercarsanonymous.com.